From characters that move at a literal snail's pace to ones that not just break the sound barrier, but space-time itself, today we're gonna find the absolutely fastest anime characters in existence, starting though at the complete opposite end with the absolute slowest one. And what I found is that that's none other than the blood cells in the series Cells at Work. Now these anthropomorphized cells move through veins and arteries very much like real blood cells at a pace of 3 millimeters per second. Now for context, that's only 0.0067 miles per hour or 10 meters per hour, and their incredibly tiny size isn't doing them any favors here. But then again, if they were to move much faster, then someone's gonna be dealing with some very serious heart problems, and we wouldn't wanna have that either. But up next, I've got the Den Den Mushi from One Piece. Now sadly, we don't have an actual number for their top speed, but I've also definitely never seen one of these snail phones speed blitz another character as well. And pretty close to the literal snail is a literal turtle, Coco Jumbo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now you see, in part 5 of JoJo's, Giorno and Co hid out in this turtle stand, a special room on the turtle's back called Mr. President, because of course JoJo's author Araki just has to name things after whatever random 90s song he wants to, but I mean that's a different story. And now though, from a literal turtle to the platonic ideal of a turtle, because our next candidate in this race is Shuckles, who had the lowest base speed stat of any Pokemon in existence. Now, some people in the comments might say that Shuckles had some truly impressive quick dodging feats in certain scenes from the anime, so this is a good time to clarify a couple of things. When we're talking about speed in this video, we're not just talking about reaction times. I mean, otherwise, just about every anime character I talk about would have some truly insane one-time feats, because people are out here dodging lightning and laser beams all the time. And with that out of the way though, we're finally speeding up with an actual person on this list. Well, a fake anime person, but one that is technically a human at least. It's Henry Legoland from Black Clover. Now, the main slow feature of Henry is his incredibly slow speaking voice, which makes him almost impossible to understand. However, he's also really slow in general, with a mysterious illness that keeps him bedridden most of the time. But luckily, he makes up for this by being able to control an entire mansion at will with his magic abilities, making him a viable member of the Black Bulls despite his insanely low speed. But with that, I'd say enough of the slow guys. I've got a real need for speed, so let's move from slow people to some average people, and no one writes average people like One, the creator of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho. After all, remember that Saitama's signature technique is the normal punch, but it's still a little bit too early to talk about him right now. Instead, right now we're talking about the S-rank hero, King, who, as it turns out, has no powers whatsoever and is just a regular human dude. He just happens to have a really intimidating appearance, and rumors of his strength have been so greatly exaggerated that even the most terrifying villains run just seeing him. And honestly, he probably can't catch up to even one of them, because this guy just has the speed of a regular average dude. And we're now moving over to Mob Psycho, where we're not talking about the super-powered psychic mob. We're talking about his mentor, Reigen Arataka, whose only real power is lying, and just like King, has all of the running speed of a completely average man, at least when he isn't temporarily borrowing Mob's powers, but we will not count that for this video. However, Reigen, even at full speed, could never keep up with the insane speed of a high school athlete. Because Shoyo Hinata from Haikyuu or Hyoma Chigiri from Blue Lock are not slow by any means. They are trained athletes who could definitely outrun you, outrun me, but unlike most of the characters to come, they don't yet have any crazy supernatural powers or strengths. Though our next character is also still a regular human, but one who literally has speed in his name. Speed Racer. Sadly though, the name of his car, the Mach 5, is kind of a cruel lie. In case you didn't know, Mach 1 means that something is gonna go at the speed of sound, which will be relevant later in this video, which would mean that Mach 5 is 5 times the speed of sound. Unfortunately though, the Mach 5 actually tops out at around 300 miles per hour or 482 kilometers per hour, which is nearly as fast as the actual fastest car in the world, but nowhere near close to breaking the sound barrier. But to change that, let's get a little bit closer to breaking that sound sound barrier with Eren Yeager. Even in his human form, Eren's ODM gear allows him to quickly maneuver in 3D space to combat titans, but of course once he transforms, his attack titan size allows him to cover a lot of ground really fast. But still, if we're actually gonna go and break the sound barrier and go Mach 1, well, there's an easy way to tell when it happens, which is a sonic boom. Now this loud noise, which sounds like an explosion, is created by shock waves that occur when an object moves faster than the speed of sound, meaning faster than the air around it can expand. And a great example comes from Demon Slayer's Zenitsu, whose thunder breathing technique, Thunderclap and Flash, has him move so fast that it literally creates the sound of thunder. Now, since thunder is actually a type of sonic boom, this would suggest that Zenitsu actually is breaking the sound barrier, though it's hard to tell with Demon Slayer since a lot of the elemental effects shown are kind of just for show and visualization and are metaphors for their sword styles. However, at the same time, it seems like the speed and slicing are in fact really real, which would suggest that Zenitsu actually is moving this fast. And while for Zenitsu you could maybe make an argument that it's fake, there is absolutely no debate about it when it comes to our next group of characters who are firmly in the supersonic level, meaning that all of them have managed to clear Mach 1 and then some more. And up first is the fastest of all the Titan shifters, one who can completely blitz Eren's attack Titan, Porco Galliard's Jaw Titan. Now Porco is the fastest user of this Titan, with characters stating that his rendition of the Jaw Titan was much faster than the previous user Ymir, which was likely due to his warrior candidate training. Though ironically enough, our next super fast character doesn't seem speedy at all at first glance, because in fact he looks downright slow. And that character is Sloth, the homunculus from Full Metal Alchemist. And while he does move at a snail's pace, at a sloth's pace, I guess I should say most of the time, because he's actually the fastest out of all the homunculi. Homunculuses. He's able to completely outspeed veteran soldiers like the Armstrong siblings easily. The characters up next though are going beyond supersonic. Most of them are at least hypersonic, which is 5 times the speed of sound. So, really sorry to say Speed Racer, but these guys here, they're actually going Mach 5. And now for a real shocker, the very first hypersonic character is Usopp. Now listen, I couldn't believe it either, but if there is one thing this man is good at, it's running away real fast. Now, sure, he's supposed to be the stand-in for a regular human being in the One Piece universe, but he is far from it. This man kept up with a post-Skypiea Luffy before he had his own training arc. He dodged lightning bolts, he's got a surprising amount of speed feats throughout the story, and I mean, sure, those kind of go with the reaction speed a little bit more than with actual travel speed, but you've got to put some real respect to his name. But this also just illustrates a huge point though, which is that pretty much none of these series come with an actual speedometer. Mangakas are usually just drawing what looks really cool for a particular scene and aren't really that worried about the mathematical calculations to make it realistic to actually figure out the exact speed of their characters. So I do have to admit that unless there is an explicit speed measurement given to us, it's really hard to give a legitimate speed estimate since the source material is often really inconsistent. Here's a great example. The One Punch Man villain who's really selling himself short, Speedo Sound Sonic, who can't keep up with Saitama, but actually goes above and beyond his name and should actually be called 5 times the speed of Sound Sonic, because his speed is literally in the name, and yet it's actually misleading based on his own feats in the series, like being way faster than the Deep Sea King even in his hydrated form. Then there's the star of Assassination Classroom, Koro-sensei, the quickest smiley face around, and he has plenty of feats that would suggest that he's massively hypersonic, but the text explicitly states that his top speed is Mach 20, which is 6,860 meters per second, which, don't get me wrong, is still insanely fast. However, that's absolutely nothing compared to our next competitors who get up to Mach 364, 364 times the speed of sound, which just so happens to be the speed of light itself. And representing our lightning speed category are Luck from Black Clover and of course Killua from Hunter x Hunter. Now again, a little bit of science lesson here for those of you who don't know. The flash that lightning creates does travel at light speed because, well, it's light, but the bolt itself only travels at about a third of that same speed, or 270,000 miles per hour, or 434,449 kilometers per hour. So many numbers. Anyways, given these characters' electrical power sets, it makes total sense that they'd be insanely fast. I mean, with a technique literally called Godspeed, you'd kind of assume that Killua would be crazy fast. And yes, before that one guy gets started in the comments, I do know that technically Godspeed just means that Killua can constantly maintain his top speed and it doesn't actually boost him beyond his top speed. Again, sadly, Killua doesn't come with a speedometer, but again, when Godspeed is an actual combination of two techniques called Whirlwind and Speed of Lightning, I can only assume that Speed of Lightning is somewhat accurately named as well, right? However, as we'll see, some lightning users even surpass the element that they're named after. And one of them is Yoruichi from Bleach, one of the few Soul Reapers who don't even use their Zanpakuto sword, relying instead fully on her own mastery of spirit energy. And her mastery of the flash step technique and ability to channel spiritual pressure into the form of electricity allowed her to create a form called the Flash Goddess, making her by far one of the all-time fastest fighters in all of Bleach. Meanwhile, Naruto's fourth Raikage is yet another electrical user whose speed is just on a completely different level. Similar to Killua's Godspeed, he uses electrical chakra energy to manually control his own nervous system, allowing for absolutely unbelievably quick reaction and movement times. And yet, somehow, it's still not quite enough to keep up with the fellow shinobi Minato Namikaze, Naruto's dad, aka Konoha's Yellow Flash, who was known as the fastest ninja of his time, though not quite the fastest Naruto character out there, as we will see. And actually, one of the top pro heroes from My Hero Academia has the benefit of flight on his side to even enhance his speed more. When he's going all out, he's able to outspeed even veteran heroes like Endeavor, who can keep up with the most powerful villains in the entire universe. But just how Minato is not the fastest character in Naruto, there's gonna be yet another My Hero character coming up later on that's even faster. But first, it's time to finally get into characters who are certifiably as fast as light. And hey, before you say, oh, some of the characters we've talked about on this list already can do things like fight so fast that people looking can't even follow along with the fight, they're already faster than light, well, not quite. You see, the human eye can only track about 30 to 60 frames a second, and whether we can follow things also heavily depends not only on their velocity, but also the size and distance. Meaning that some of the characters we've talked about were fast enough to not be seen, but not as fast as light. But you're of course not here exclusively for my great science lessons, you're here for the fastest guys in anime. And Admiral Kizaru from One Piece ate the Glint Glint or Light fruit, which allows him to turn into literal light. Therefore, when he's transformed, he actually moves at the speed of light. Now, there is a problem here. There's definitely an argument to be made that One Piece's light, or a lot of other light abilities, actually move slower than our light, since people are somehow able to dodge Kizaru's beam attacks, but we're just gonna ignore that fact. I mean, he is made of light, so he's gonna go at the speed of light, and that's kind of that. And actually tied with Kizaru being exactly at light speed is the fastest out of all Pokemon, Regieleki, who has the fastest base speed stat of any pocket monster and can also move at the speed of light, even though he's presumably made of electricity since he is an electric type. So the physics here, oh well, I mean, the folks over at the Pokemon Company aren't super scientists either, except for Professor Oak and Elm and Burke and all the other assorted tree-named professors, I guess. Oh well. Before I do go into the categories now of characters that just straight up defy all physics and laugh in the face of God itself by going faster than the speed of light, I have a few honorable mentions limitations here for super fast characters who may or may not count depending on our own definition of speed. And for me personally, I think that speed implies that you're actually moving through space at an accelerated rate. Because for me, I think that speed implies that you're actually moving throughout space at an accelerated rate, right? You're actually going from A to B. You'll see what I'm getting at, because Gojo Satoru's infinity powers technically allow him to essentially teleport. However, he's also not really moving through space at an accelerated rate. Instead, he's presumably just compressing space itself in order to be able to move across it, which is not really him moving at all, but rather him moving space. Then of course there's the question of time manipulation, because the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure villains Dio and Pucci appear to move impossibly fast, but really they're just stopping or manipulating time. Meaning that when Dio activates Zawarudo, he's not necessarily moving super fast, he's just walking casually while the world is frozen around him. And Ainz Ulgon from Overlord is also capable of similar speed feats, also through the powers of time manipulation. Then Dragon Ball's Angel Whis kind of uses both abilities, warping by manipulating space and time to ultimately be faster than pretty much every other Dragon Ball character. But once again, I think it's a little bit questionable whether this actually counts as traveling and being fast. Meanwhile, the cosmic forces of both Sailor Moon from the anime, well, you know, Sailor Moon, and the anti-spiral from Gurren Lagann are basically omnipresent. Sailor Moon's speed and power is essentially immeasurable, and she can traverse an entire galaxy in a single panel of the manga. Meanwhile, the anti-spiral essentially exists everywhere in the universe all at once, so speed is barely part of the equation, even though its speed is technically infinite. And then before we return to the actual fastest anime characters, here's the last exception. It's Notorious Big, not the rapper, the stand from JoJo's, because of course that's a stand from JoJo's. Appearing in part 5, Notorious Big is the fastest stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but it also operates by very, very strange and unique rules, like pretty much every other stand in the story, I guess. Now, it automatically searches for the fastest thing in its vicinity, makes that its target, and then copies its speed. So technically, its speed is infinite, and theoretically, it could match any other character on this list, but again, kind of hard to count that one. But now, it's actually time for the characters that say, physics? What physics? Get that out of here. Come on, get rid of that. Now, you may or may not know that the reason why light is the fastest thing in the universe is because the particles, the photons that it's made out of, they have no mass. Meaning that in order to accelerate an object that does have mass to the same speed of light, you would pretty much need infinite amounts of energy. It's effectively impossible, but this is anime and the rules do not apply to these characters. That's how broken they are. So let's kick off this ultimate category of fastest anime characters with the first above light speed one, who is so fast he just ran into this anime character video, Sonic the Hedgehog, who is also named Sonic in a very misleading way since he goes way beyond the speed of sound and goes faster than the speed of light instead. And yes, he's mainly a video game character, but with plenty of anime adaptations like Sonic X, the blue blur is very much welcome in this video. Now, in a lot of cases, the fastest character in a given series ends up being the protagonist, so even though they have other characters in their series who explicitly have powers centered around speed, their main character privilege or plot armor gives them the ability to be faster than anybody else in their universe. Starting with one of the newer shonen stars, Mash Burnett from Mashal, who can far exceed the speed of light in his unlimited physical mode as well. And of course, we also have to pay tribute to the granddaddy of shonen protagonists, Astro Boy, who despite just having some rocket thrusters in his legs, canonically flew to the sun and back in just a matter of a few minutes. Now, in case you don't know, light actually needs 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth, so both ways it's 16 minutes, making him way faster than the speed of light. And yet another faster than light protagonist is Midoriya from My Hero Academia, who thanks to one of his one-for-all abilities called Fajin, can actually break light speed by stockpiling kinetic energy and releasing it in an incredible burst of power. Then there's Ichigo, whose Bankai enhances his speed and strength to the point that he can keep up with villains like, and I'm so gonna slaughter this name, Yuak? Yaiwak? I don't know how to pronounce his name, who is universe-breakingly powerful, and they're already incomprehensibly fast themselves. Then of course there's Naruto's ultimate form, Baryon mode, which basically makes his own chakra go absolutely nuclear, allowing him to outspeed the ungodly fast alien ninjas of the Otsutsuki clan. We also have the two poster children of overpowered anime protagonists, Goku and Saitama, one of whom gained physics-breaking speed by training under intense artificial gravity for literal years, and whose literal death couldn't keep him from his martial arts training, and the other one who gained his universe-defying powers by going for a 10-kilometer jog every other day. And while it might seem that these must be the fastest characters in anime, there's one final entry on this speed comparison that would win any race against any of the characters we've talked about so far. And while technically it's kind of hard to say if this character actually outspeeds characters like Goku or Saitama, but I think we just have to give him the #1 spot here for one very simple reason. When this character moves faster than light, he actually follows the rules of physics while he does it, or at least he follows the rules of physics as much as anyone in anime can. And that guy is Shinda Kusakabe, the main character of the massively underrated series Fire Force, who doesn't just move his body at the speed of light, instead his body breaks into subatomic particles which themselves move faster than the speed of light. And technically, we're now about to get a little bit into time travel territory here as well, but unlike some of the earlier special mentions, the Fire Force author really read up on their theory of relativity. You see, the consensus of scientists is that faster than light particles do not exist within our own universe. However, according to the theory of relativity, if such particles, often called tachyons, did exist, they would travel backwards in time. And bringing this back to Shinda, since the particles his body breaks into move faster than the speed of light, they revert backwards in time to a point where his body was still intact, allowing him to actually move through space at a rate way faster than time itself, while following the theoretical rules of physics. And I really think that the series author Atsushi Okubo didn't have to do all that crazy amount of research, but he did it for us. He did it for us. Anyways, thank you so much guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I have more character comparison videos, speed, strength, size. I mean, we are gonna go hard on this series. It's really fun to do, and yeah, check it out right here. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do that. It does help out, even if it's annoying to be asked every time. And hopefully I will see you in the next video.